Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aiden. If you've never been here before, I also go by Tuesday Enthusiast. Today, I thought maybe I would talk about how I've been building a consistent art practice around my 9-to-5 job and how maybe you can too. Obviously, things that work for me might not work for you, but I've been able to be making at least 2 pieces a month since I started working full-time, which I feel like is a good amount of pieces for me personally. When I was unemployed over the summer, I was making about double that. So I know that if I ever were to take art full-time, I could make 4 new pieces a month, give or take. And I think I'm just gonna sound like this possibly for the rest of the year. For those who don't know, and I don't think any of you know unless you know me in real life, I'm an elementary school teacher in the day. And I've had a cold, I think, since the 3rd week of September, and it's just a new cold each week. It's getting bad. But this is just, I think, maybe what I sound like these days. Anyway, the first main thing that I did to make art a consistent practice is I don't pressure myself to work on it if I'm not feeling like it at that time. I know some artists are like, oh no, you have to push through it. And maybe if I was doing this full-time, there might be times where I just like have commissions to do, or I have a piece that like needs to be done for like a gallery thing or something. But right now my business is so small and whatever, there's not that kind of pressure yet. So if I'm not feeling like creating in that moment, I'm not gonna make myself create, because then the piece feels forced to me, and when I look back on it, I'm like, I was forcing myself to do that. And then it kind of loses some of the value of why I make art to me. So that's like the first thing, is that I don't force myself. So like, we have a little graveyard down here of pieces that are like half done. It's not really a graveyard, I shouldn't call it that. They're just waiting to be finished while I make some decisions about them. My mom has a visual arts degree from university, and she talks about how there was a lot of time spent staring. She had this whole phase of her artistic practice called the staring phase, where she would like look at pictures or her paintings. She would look at her stuff that's half done, and she would just like stare for a while and try to like determine what color would work where, what else needs to be added, is it done, all of that stuff. So most of those are in the staring phase. But yeah, I literally take time out of my day every day to look at those 3 pieces that are down there and like really look at them, and I think about, does something need to be added here? What if I use that color for this? How much more detail needs to be existing? And once I've made those creative decisions, then I can start moving forward. And we all create differently, right? So that's another part of my daily art practice, is anything that's in the works, I take some time to look at and make some decisions. Or maybe not yet. Maybe I still go, I don't really know, I'm gonna be honest. And so then I don't make a decision that day. The next way that I nurture my daily art practice is I let myself create however I want to that day. I have so many projects going on. I've always been a creative person. You know, I have a music degree, I sing sometimes I dance, sometimes I write novels. Like I have some on the works that I'm working on casually. I'll say casually. But they're still happening, they're still creative projects. If I'm like, I want to try clay, I go and get some clay, it's not that deep. If I want to try painting a new way, I do that. If I want to use crayons, I do that. I don't limit myself to a specific medium. There are obviously mediums that I'm better at. There are things that make more sense for me to make art with at a more professional level and sell. But not every piece of art that you make is meant to be shared with the world like that. Sometimes it's just for you to explore, right? So some things I make are just for me, and sometimes I make things and I post on social media about it, but I know I'm never gonna sell it. And other things I'm like, you can get this. It really is dependent. But don't pigeonhole yourself to your best medium, because you might want to try a crayon, and that's perfectly fine. You can want to try new things and do different creative endeavors and still be an artist and still be the best at oil paints or whatever compared to yourself in other areas. And you can still want to like color in a paint by numbers with pencil crayons. The world is your oyster is what I'm trying to say. If you pigeonhole yourself and then you get bored with oil paints or whatever, that's just the example we've been sticking with, then what? You're just gonna stop creating until you feel the itch again. But if you have all of these different creative things that you've been working on and trying out and experimenting with, you're more likely to create on a regular basis. It just might not be towards the same project. So you'll be creating more. The next way I build a consistent art practice is it's in my daily routine. It is currently 8:52 a.m. This is my creative time. So today I'm filming YouTube, but sometimes I do other things. This is my creative time, usually between 8:30 and 10 a.m. And then sometimes, if I don't do it in the morning, I'll do it at like 7 p.m. I have like two very distinct creative windows in my day. It's either right now while I have some coffee and I've just finished writing my to-do list in my bullet journal, or it's like after work, after my nap, after dinner. It's not, there's no time in the daytime to do it, but I find that those are my two windows. So today I'm spending my creative energy filming this for you, but other days I spend my creative energy painting or whatever. And I find that my body just kind of starts to do it. It's like any other habit, where like once you've established that this is where this goes in your routine, maybe it's not a specific time, it's just after I've done my bullet journaling. Maybe it's not at a specific time for you, but rather a specific step. But I do know that after I've made my coffee and done my bullet journaling, I'm like, what are we creating today for a little bit? And it also doesn't have to be long. That's my next thing. It's my next consistent art practice. It doesn't have to be long. If I am like, all right, it's creative time in my routine, and I try for like 5 minutes to like sketch or something, and my body's like, please don't make me do this. Please don't make me. I stop. I gotta try, but sometimes you're not sure if you're in the mood for something, but spending 5 minutes going, all right, friend, let's give it a go, at least helps me do it, because some days I do make a whole painting and some days I make some progress on a painting, and sometimes I spend like 10 minutes and I go, not in the mood for this. And that's okay. You're allowed to not be in the mood for that. And then I ask myself, what are we in the mood for? Because we have like an hour to burn. And so I find what I'm in the mood for. Usually if I'm not in the mood for creating, I'm in the mood for consuming art. So my body's like, I really want to read that book that we've been reading, or I'm really interested in learning about this specific technique actually. So as much as I might not always be creating during my creative time, it's like a intentional media consumption time if I'm not creating in a way that is inspiring to create. I'm not just like mindlessly staring at YouTube, eyes glazed over, and I'm not scrolling on TikTok. I'm like consuming other art and imagining how my art can be impacted by that art. The last thing I do to create a consistent art practice for myself is I allow myself to make bad, shitty art. I know that's crazy. That's like my pal Erin Rainey, I'll link her channel below or up top or whatever. They talk almost exclusively about making bad art. It's like I would dare say their slogan is make shitty art. I mean, make bad art. They don't swear, I don't think. That's what Erin talks about all the time. But when you allow yourself to make bad art, it creates space for you to also make the good art eventually. If you allow yourself to create whatever you feel like creating at that time, whether it's good or bad or whatever, you've created and you've practiced things and you've tried things out and you've been in a curious state. And maybe what you made today is weird and doesn't make sense. But that doesn't mean that what you make tomorrow won't be impacted positively by the experiment you made today. Anyway, that's all from me today. It's a short one this week. Thanks for sticking around and listening to me yap. If you have any other consistent art practice habits to leave in the comments below, I would love to hear them. I'm always down to try something new, and you should be too. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like this, give this a like if you like this, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Stay crafty.